I'm going to start with the reminder that this is the end of this round of things.
How was it last week? I missed you.
We missed you.
We made a lot of fun of you.
Good.
Yeah, we had a wonderful time.
Yeah.
So much better.
It was so much better. Yeah.
Just flowed.
So much better, really.
Better content.
Yeah. We were better looking.
Decidedly less shenanigans.
Yeah.
All right.
Are you ready?
I'm ready anytime you're ready.
Okay, welcome back. This is the final video of our Ask the Wizard series where we're just answering questions. Anybody sends in free access to these videos. For the last month and a half we've been doing this.
Because we are wonderful people.
Yeah. Mostly Ryan. So,
again, I'm still just here for the free wine.
Yeah. We're going to release this video. You'll be watching this on June 1st. After this, the videos go back to what they were before, which was once a month. We do exactly this, and we do it only for members of the American Small Business Institute. So if, at $100 a month, you get access to the monthly videos like this and all the other content that we're building on that platform, including some streaming classes we're starting to develop right now on there with our instructors. So the next video, because this is June, then the next video will be coming out on July 13th. That's a Monday. And we will be shooting that on the Friday before that, which is July 10th. So if you are a member, get your questions in before July 10th for the July video. And I think that's it. Are you ready? Are you ready, Betty?
I'll walk around ready.
Let's do this thing.
I'll walk around ready.
Here we go.
Whoa.
Oh, no, whoa. Hey.
I have some preliminary comments.
Oh, okay.
I have preliminary
So you're ready
comments.
you're ready for a preliminary.
Right, so here's the thing. We only got 4 questions this week.
All right.
Now, they're very, very perceptive questions. I was super proud of the laser focus, and they're very legitimate questions that there's no possible way to know these answers unless you ask somebody. Right? So thank you for that. Now, the fact there's only 4 of them, they're pretty straightforward answers. I put together a bunch of other things to talk about that will open the door to some just weird discussion. And the reason is this is stuff that neither of you have ever heard me talk about. In any real depth.
Is it origami?
Worse. It's worse.
So we're filling the time with actual content, not just slow talking.
Yes.
Oh.
So what I'm saying is the reason
I was thinking we could slow talk.
And listen, well, see,
I was also thinking.
Here's what I'm looking for. Here's what I want. I think that whenever I go out on this limb and say there's nobody else that's put these pieces together in quite the way I put them together, but I believe in it, and here's why I believe in it, and here's why I think it's useful. All right. You can agree, you can disagree, you can add to, subtract from, but then I'm going to ask both of you to contribute something that is maybe not easily, because most of the time I'll say, look, you can study this stuff on your own, it's real simple. Well, all the pieces of what I'm going to teach you can study on your own, it's real simple, but you won't find anybody that's ever put them together in that configuration. So the configuration is speculative. I have a high degree of confidence in it, but it's not something that you can say, oh, I want to find somebody else who talked about that. I'm going, people have talked around it.
Yeah.
But I don't think they put these exact pieces together before, okay? And so be thinking about what you can share because...
How about this theoretical idea?
Yeah. So this is a disclaimer. We're going to be dancing on the skinny branches.
Yes,
is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
And nobody should have any expectation that any of this is being like peer reviewed because we're literally just making it up.
No. You're making it up.
Gotcha.
Well, that sounds...
Listen, I'm the peer that reviews.
I've got like a small knot in my stomach all of a sudden.
All right,
Just a small...
So we'll go with the first question.
Mild anxiety knot. Hey, old Guinness.
Not coffee.
Hey, Daniel, another great episode today. Hoping the Wizard can expand on the cost per person. A number of years back, Roy said that 50 to 75 cents was a good number on the cost per person. In the last episode, he was talking 40 to 50 cents. What's changed? Tony and Mariani.
Okay, so good. We're talking about cost per person per year. And to review, I've been using a metric for a quarter century that I created that nobody else uses. This is another thing you can't find online, right? But the non-negotiable, when you're using radio specifically, if you want to become a household word, the race is between repetition and how many nights sleep. And so a person hearing something 3 times means nothing if it's once a week for 3 weeks. It just gets washed out, and it takes years to ever get any traction. So you're looking for a repetition of 3. Same person hears the same ad 3 times within 7 nights sleep. Therefore, we don't buy a 52-week schedule. We buy a 1-week schedule 52 times. And so we'll book, this is the typical week. Now this same typical week runs every week, 52 weeks in a row. Now the reach and frequency are counted for the 1 week. Do you guys get that?
Yep.
Yes.
I don't want to hear about this 2-week crap or the
Yep.
1 month crap. We got you a 3 frequency, but it takes 6 weeks. No.
Yeah.
Now, so cost per person per year. So if the metric is, under no circumstances will we try to reach more people, then we can afford to reach 3 times a week, 52 weeks in a row. Budget determines how many people you can reach, not how often you're going to reach them. Because if we just have to reach like 2 people 3 times a week, we're reaching those 2, if that's all the money we got. Okay? So, yes, in the past, we said, you know, if you're buying 52 weeks a year and you're paying on time and nobody's having to hold your hand and write the ads, because when we buy radio, this is just mailbox money for the salesperson.
Yeah, it's like,
So
here's
you
the
don't do
ad,
anything.
run it.
We talk once a year.
Yeah, which I think a lot of marketers don't realize, digital marketers don't realize that in radio, when you buy the ads, they'll also
Do the
all
work,
do all the
produce
work
it.
and do all
Right.
the copy. Now, it's generally terrible.
Right.
But
Yeah,
they'll
that's
do
why
it.
a lot of the people that we're reading questions from are showing us ads they've written, and they're radio people,
Right.
not consultants or marketing.
Now, so what happens is, and so recently I've said, no, 40% a person per year. We can get that in most cities right now, okay? As a matter of fact, the best deal we've got is 12 cents per person per year. And so, and it's a major city, it's a major station. We will reach the exact same person 3 times a week, 52 weeks in a row, a total of 156 times this year for 12 cents. And so people go, okay, so what happened? Radio stations lost their confidence. That's what happened. People have been telling radio stations for so long, no one listens to the radio anymore.
You're irrelevant.
You're a dinosaur and you suck and I don't like you and nobody listens to you and I haven't listened to the radio in years and nobody I know has listened to the radio in years. And they're told this constantly, right? And so for that reason and a number of other ones that we don't need to go into, radio is, and I'm talking about across the US, it's a lot less like this in Canada. Canada didn't make a lot of the really dumbass decisions that American broadcasters made, okay? But American broadcasters were too focused on the wrong stuff for too long. And then,
Is that in terms of like the consolidation that happened with it, or?
yeah.
Or is it more in terms of like within digital people focus only on impressions?
No, what happens is, and I don't really want to go down this rabbit hole too much, but
Sorry.
25 years ago, 20 years ago plus, radio stations decided to no longer try to teach people how to make radio ads work. They just teach you how to sell them. And so in the US, all the training went to selling radio ads, and no training went into actually making these people competent, okay? And because of that, they would go in there and sell something, and then there's this huge number of people that say, I tried radio and it didn't work.
Yeah.
And when everybody's saying, I tried radio and it didn't work, and then everybody else is saying, well,
I don't
nobody
even
listens to
listen
the radio anymore, then all of a sudden, when you show up and you're willing to say, no, I will spend really serious money, gigantic, huge money, in larger cities, we spend $3-4 million a year in a city. And when you're putting many hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table, even in smallish towns, and you're going, yeah, here's what we need. And people go, that sounds like a great plan to me.
Yeah.
And so the reason the price has gone down in the US is because radio has done a kind of a bad job of transferring confidence in the value of their medium. And because they've done such a bad job of maintaining the brand, okay? And so the thing, my little rant last week, I went into a rant where I said, this is what radio needs to quit saying. They always keep saying this and it's complete crap and everybody knows it. You're saying the wrong damn thing. You need to be saying these other things. And so I actually gave the broadcast industry, here's what you need to be telling people, because this is true and can be proven. And the stuff that you're telling people right now is a half-truth. It's complete crap, it's not credible, and everybody that hears it knows it's crap, and therefore they're not listening to you anymore. And the piece of crap is 92% of the people listen to the radio. It's like, no, they don't. It's like, and so you're going, where did you get that number? Well, it's according to Nielsen, 92% of America will hear the radio at least 5 minutes in a month.
Yeah. That's like the way that Facebook counts a video view. It's like if they scrolled and
it started
paused for more than like 2 seconds, they watched your video. Like, no, they didn't. No, they didn't.
All right.
Roy, should our clients mention anything about being prepped for a second wave? So like, hey guys, don't get too excited. We got another round coming. For context, we're in pretty good shape. We've only had 75 active cases out of 1.1 million people. That's got to be Canada.
Now, short
Leah
answer.
Humphrey, yeah.
Short answer. It is not the responsibility of advertisers to deliver the news,
health,
medical.
Yeah,
right.
What I'm saying is the responsibility of governments. It's the responsibility of medical profession. It's not the responsibility of radio salespeople or advertisers. And so, one of the conversations I had earlier today, any acknowledgement of COVID right now, you're beating a dead horse. Yeah. There's nothing that people haven't already heard. There's nothing that people don't already know. And to stay on that thing is just to become tedious. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of people that are continuing to run ads that should have been pulled by now. Yeah. Because the bottom line is, hey, the people who take this seriously don't need your help to be reminded. And the people who don't take it seriously, there's nothing you're going to do or say that means crap. And so
we also have no way of knowing what the response from the public is going to be if there's a second wave. So let's take out let's look at all the unknowns. We don't know if there will be. We don't know if there is, what the response will be. Maybe it's like it happened the first time. Maybe it's more depressed. Maybe people are in a greater denial. We don't know any of that. And so I think if it comes back, you just need to be prepared for. You're going back to like planning your marketing and advertising 1 week at a time, and you have to be current, relevant to that week, and you've got to be super nimble. I think that while you shouldn't necessarily talk to people about the second wave, I think internally you need to be talking about and have a plan for if there is, then what, and begin to think about that. And probably more, I think it's more important. I know we're doing this right now, preparing our internal team for if there is a second wave. What did we learn from the last one that we think we could apply here? I think it's healthy to have those conversations. Much in the same vein, I think it was the first one of these shows that I was on. You gave a link and talked about the article that is it, Blizzard, Ice Age type thing, and talked about those 3 scenarios. Arguably, if there's no second wave, then that was a winter. It was a season. If there is, then maybe we're talking more Ice Age. So I'd go back, dust off that article, review it again, and make sure that you're kind of prepped and ready for the Ice Age scenario.
Agreed.
Well, I'm kind of new at this, but I think that I can help most businesses better by convincing them they should invest in long-term bonding rather than a series of short-term transactional campaigns. I don't need to be convinced of it. How do you suggest I explain both strategies how do we change them to thinking long-term?
Okay. Now remember, the only thing I want to point out is the premise of the question is that there's something that you can say that's going to change a person's fundamental theology
about marketing.
And I'm going, I've never been able to do it one time in my entire life.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, what I've learned to do is, and what I'm saying is, you would like to think, well, if I could only just open their eyes. And it's like, yeah, you know what? And this, I'm going to go way out on a limb here. And I probably shouldn't, but I will, as I always do. I've never seen anybody who was successful at arguing somebody out of being gay. Mm-hmm. It's like, you know what? I've just never seen that work. And so it's the same thing. When a person thinks in short term, it needs to work immediately because it's an organized universe, and when you pull the handle, out comes the results, and I want to advertise this week and see the results this week, and I'm going, okay, if that's in their DNA, just deal with that. You're not going to change it. I've never once ever been able to change it successfully. I've tried lots of times. People have told me I'm ready to change. Not one time has anybody ever made the curve. Never. And so I learned, as a function of just self-preservation, to find people who already believe in the value of long-term.
Pick your clients.
And it's kind of like, no, I'm just going to isolate the people who already believe that, obviously, and they're not twitchy. And I'm only going to work with them. And so I filter, because remember, here's my argument. Working hard, working long hours, working hard. I've never met anybody that could take care of more than 20 clients. Okay? If they're advertising 52 weeks a year and you've got to stay on top of it and you've got to manage it and you've got to do a lot of creative stuff and production and you've got to, 20 clients is it. As a matter of fact, the real number is closer to 12 or 14. And so when you start saying, okay, so if everybody bought a 52-week schedule and they're on the air with a solid repetition every week, 52 weeks in a row, I mean, your owner is going to be mailing your checks to your beach house. You're going to make so much money, you don't need more than 12 or 14 clients. But yet, most advertising salespeople will have an account list of 50 or 60 clients on it, and some of them advertise 1 week a year, whatever. And it's like, you can't split your attention among that many different people and make a living out of it. And so, what can you say to change their thinking? You can't. You can simply ask them, say, hey, listen, there's basically 2 ways to advertise. One is direct response. You advertise now, you get a result now. That's really hard to build a long-term brand that way. The other way is you advertise and it hurts like hell at first. And you don't see nearly enough for the money that you're spending, but you're waiting for the people to get into the market for what you're selling, because there's not a high percentage of the public that's in the market on any given day. And so the goal is not to try to just reach the people that are in the market right now. The goal is to reach the people and leave a lasting impression on them that aren't in the market right now, but will be at some point in the future. So the longer you do the right thing, the better it works. Now, which of those 2 ways do you lean? And then believe their answer. Mm-hmm. Believe them. When they say, well, I like the short term, say, great, good luck with that, go with God. And if anybody ever wants to work with somebody like you, I'll send them your way. Mm-hmm. And so you can work with people that are short term. It's just a thankless job. And within a year, you will have come up with every clever thing that you can do, and you've tried it 3 different times for them, and any time that you don't do better than you've ever done ever before, they're disappointed in you. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like, hang on. You work so hard, and no matter how big of a miracle you make for short-term people, that's the new benchmark. I want you to do that same thing next week, but even bigger. But the problem is, my experience has been, the longer you're doing that, the less well it works. And you'll get your biggest results right away, and then you keep doing it, and people have heard the little boy cry wolf, and they don't come running anymore. And I'm going, so I just got out of that business. I was super good at it when I was young. And I'm going, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to find these other kind of people. And so my short answer is, you can't change them. Just learn to identify them, and then choose who to lose, choose who to work with.
Can I attempt to answer the question as asked?
Please do.
Because I was 100% transactional. I grew up, and I think I've talked about it on previous shows. I grew up watching short form infomercials. So like, I was born with Ron Popeil on my television thing, right? Like, that was what was, and all the type of marketing that I did was that. And really, it wasn't until I read Wizard of Ads that I was like, oh, there's this whole other world out there. So you did convince me, by the way. Now, maybe there was always there.
You convinced yourself.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough.
With new information.
With new information. So I believe that people, if provided new information, can change. And I remember when I had this realization, my opening keynote at Traffic Conversion Summit, and this would have been 5 years ago maybe, I sought to convince a room full of 3,000 just hardcore direct response digital marketers that really they need to invest in bonding. And the way that I did it is I said, I want to redefine what bonding is and what sales transactions are. Bonding is simply making a deposit of relational equity. So if you think about a bank, you go there and you make, anytime you run a bonding campaign, and this can be making them laugh, making them cry, making them feel something, educating them, informing them. Oftentimes what marketers do with content marketing when they're blogging and what we're doing right now, bonding, right? Content marketing. That is making a deposit of relational equity in that person's bank account. Now, when you ask for the sale, when you run a direct response campaign, you're making a withdrawal of relational equity. You are drawing down on that relational equity account. Now, there's nothing wrong with making a withdrawal as long as you have adequate funds on deposit. And so it's not this either or. Like, if you go to your own bank and take some money out, they're not going to freak out. If you go to the bank that you don't have any funds on deposit and you go take money, that's called stealing. right? That's bank robbery. And
Now you're writing hot checks.
Right, and so that's kind of that's sort of the argument that I made, and I said, now I don't expect any of you, even if you believe me, to want to do this. So what I said, and this is maybe the way that you could approach this when you're talking to a client or somebody else, give me 20%. 20% of your budget. Just 20% of your budget, like carve that out, and you taught me this as well, and let's run a test. Let's run a test for 90 days and see if this 20% doesn't suddenly cause everything else to work better. Now, in the digital space, we can track this in different ways because when we run content bonding campaigns, we can still pixel them. So they can show up in custom audiences in Facebook and Google, and we can literally watch the people who we know watched not just a second of the video, but maybe they watched at least half of the video. And we can say, let's add this person to this custom audience. We have done something to bond with them. So we can begin to get a little bit numerical with it. It still is kind of horse crap, but you have a general idea. In each case, when we've been able to convince somebody to just allocate that 20%, what I said is now, for all the new revenue that comes as a result of this, I want you to allocate 50% to the bonding. And then with the goal of eventually getting it to go from 20/80 to 80/20. And that's the only thing we've been able to do. So maybe it works for you, maybe it doesn't, but I found that analogy of the relational
Right, so the
equity
last thing
accounts
that I would add, just for credibility purposes, Johnny Molson is one of my partners, and you'll be able to go on YouTube and find this pretty easily. Molson, M-O-L-S-O-N. So Johnny Molson sent the partners a video. It was like 12 or 13 minutes. It was incredibly well produced. And if by some miracle we wind up with time at the end of this, we'll take a look at it. I'll find it. But the point is, there's two guys, Peter Thiel and somebody else in Great Britain, that studied this. I think it was like 20 years or 30 years. It was like 1,500 companies they monitored for decades. It was at least 20 years, but I think it was 30 years. And they were looking at cause and effect. They were looking at their advertising budgets, their advertising messages, and the growth of the companies. And they proved conclusively from the data that, and by the way, we're going to have them at Wizard Academy, but it takes 50 grand a piece to get those guys here. And so it was a no-go. But we literally tried to get them to come. And what they demonstrated was there has to be what we would call direct response, transactional. What they called was sales activation.
Yeah.
They called it sales activation. And then what we think of as customer bonding, they said, for the average business that did the best, it was 60% bonding, 40% sales activation messages. And they said anytime somebody had 100% sales activation, they did not ever build a brand.
Then you're a pervert.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like you never build a brand with sales activation. No matter how often you do it, no matter how much you spend, you don't have a brand. And then they said, but you're going to underperform if all you do is customer bonding and you never have anything where you catch, make a withdrawal.
Then you get friend zoned.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, you're everybody's buddy, and everybody's like, oh, I love you so much. You're such a good friend. And like, you're the dude that she calls up when her boyfriend breaks up with her, right? But not calls up to go on a date, right? So you got to balance the friend zone.
Don't be
and the
that
pervert.
guy, right?
Don't be either of them.
All right, now.
Roy, Daniel, Ryan, thank you for the generous gift of Ask the Wizard. I know it's hard to answer these questions with too little background, but you've done a great job. We are planning to add
Masterful. What they said was masterful.
Masterful job.
Because we're
Thank you.
masters, masters at
We're
this.
planning to add cable TV spots to Mighty Pet's bonding strategy. Cable TV will be in addition to our radio schedule. Do you have any tips on how to avoid creating conflicting messages between our locally owned image and being able to afford cable TV?
Okay. How to avoid creating conflicting messages, all right? A campaign is a campaign, and no matter what media you're communicating it through, you don't abandon the campaign. And so you're using a new medium to deliver the same message. You're saying, okay, so the exact same character voices, and I'm just telling you how I would do it for maximum charm, least money, okay? Is we might take a time to look at the Awkward Puppets videos. Have you guys seen those?
Yeah.
Okay. They're like Muppets.
Yeah.
But so you get little puppets. And I would actually do on cable TV for Mighty Pet, I would have little puppets, a little cat puppet, little dog puppet.
No actual people?
Yeah, and no actual people.
Yeah.
And it would be obviously unbelievably homemade.
Yeah, like a sock.
Endearingly
You can still see
homemade.
the stripe line from the athletic yellow stripe on the yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, you get the best.
Some of the props
you get the
fall
little
over.
best animal puppets, but the exact same voices. Remember, you can use the voices you already recorded for the TV ad.
There's no people on
And
it.
now you're just having somebody move their hand, to just find somebody that's good with puppets, so that the faces are cute, and you can.
Then get those bulk made and give them away to kids who come visit the pet store.
Yeah. That was a good
Exactly.
idea.
Yeah.
And so now you've got your little swag
Has
gifts.
anyone benefited more from this series than Keith?
No.
You know what, though?
No single human.
But let me
And,
tell you.
and I'm not saying that as a knock. Like,
Yeah.
he's benefited because he's shown up and has asked great questions and
Yeah.
has implemented. It's so
And
fun to
I
help
look
him
forward
out.
to seeing you monthly with my new subscription.
That's right.
That's exactly where I was going.
Yeah, thank you. Now, let me tell you what else he did, though. And I have not shared. Big box arrived, full of incredible treats from some really famous custom candy shop in his town.
Nice.
And there were some turtles,
Yeah.
and there was this big box of roasted pecans. I didn't bring those.
You ate those.
I will let you have wine, but I kept the snacks.
Yeah,
Right?
that's fair.
And so
It's fair.
he's a classy guy.
Yeah.
And so you just don't change the campaign. Just say, okay, how would I take this to the television screen, and doing it in a way that is obviously.
Yeah.
Remember, the worst thing you can do is look homemade accidentally.
Right.
If you're going to have cheap homemade ads, make sure that everybody knows you did that on purpose, and it's just part of the charm.
And I do like the idea of puppets because if the second when you start with radio and now there's the voice, I'm hearing the voice and I'm picturing my own cat. The second I now see, it's like when you read a book and you're like, that's not what I thought the character looked like. It's the Scott McCloud, Understanding Comics, right? The more that we pull back in the more something is more stick figure-y, the more we project ourselves upon it. The stick figure equivalent of a pet is a puppet. So,
and that's how I can use the same voice
yeah,
and make it seem believable.
right.
All right. Now,
All right.
this is my thing. Speaking to the felt need is talking about what is in fact in the customer's mind, not what you wish was in their mind. See what I mean? Now, speaking to identity is connected to that, but it is a different lens. The identity of the customer is the lens through which you look at their interpretation of the felt need.
Okay.
Okay? Now, Maslow said in first world countries, about 10% of the population is mostly concerned about having enough money in the bank to make the rent, to keep gas in the car until payday, food in the pantry until payday.
Pure survival.
Pure survival, and they consider themselves wealthy if it's payday and they still have a few bucks left over from last paycheck.
We all remember
It's
that
like,
day.
wow, that's like, wow. How did that happen? Now, loosely speaking, it's not strictly true, but the higher needs, you don't spend a lot of time with them until the lower need has been met. Now, there's another 10% of the population that safety is their biggest unmet need.
They got it, don't want to lose it.
Well, no, what happens is there's somebody in the household, or somebody in the neighborhood, or somebody in the building, or somebody at work that makes you incredibly uncomfortable and keeps you uneasy all the time.
So this is specifically about other people?
Yes,
It's about your personal safety.
personal safety.
Yeah, but it's not just about theoretical safety, like am I financially secure?
No, hell
it's
no.
specifically
No,
human
this is
interaction
about
safety?
this is about your dad or your husband or your
Okay.
mom beating you up,
Yeah.
or your kid robbing you while you're asleep because he's a drug addict, or neighborhood.
It could also be some type of a mental disorder if you're dealing with severe
Exactly.
depression and
So what I'm
bipolar
saying is
and those kind of
it's
things.
like they're being kept by another human being
Yeah.
or more in their life. They're being kept uneasy and on edge constantly. Now that's 20% of our society, and here's what gets crazy: our belonging needs. 2/3 of the people, our single biggest unmet need is, who am I? Where's my tribe? Who are my people? What am I supposed to be doing with my life? And so, am I where I belong? And so most of what we buy, a huge percentage of what we buy, I've said many times, we buy to remind ourselves and announce to the world around us who we are, or how we would like to be perceived. Then, our belonging needs is the biggest unmet need in first world countries. 2/3 of us, that's our biggest unmet need. Now, prestige is 12 to 15%. But that is basically, I have found my tribe, I know who I am, I know what I'm here to do. Now I'm looking for recognition from the tribe.
Yeah, inside the
I'm
tribe.
looking for ascendancy. I'm looking for your fame and glory within the tribe. Now, what's funny about people who are there, that's where they're at, they think that's where everybody else is too. And they want to reward people with the thing that would make them happy. It's like, no, I don't want a parking place that says Employee of the Month. I just want to know this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
I just want to know that this is where I belong.
Yeah, when I walk into the office, people are going to go, Norm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so then the reason, this is called self-actualizing, it's 2%, 3% of the population is no longer a customer for anything.
Yeah.
They know how to take themselves to their happy place. Now, Maslow fell out of favor because people got confused about what self-actualizing was, and because it confused them and it frustrated them, they just kind of quit talking
Sounded
about it.
very Eastern.
It did.
Yeah, mystical.
But all it really comes down to is, I know how to take myself to my happy place. I don't need anybody's help. I know what to do to make myself feel whole. And
Or Dr. Grant maybe would call it self-care.
there you go. And so, anyway, each of us needs identity, purpose, and adventure. Identity, who am I? Purpose, why am I here? Adventure, what are the obstacles I need to overcome? Without trouble, there is no adventure. So what are the things in my way? What are the problems I have to overcome? That is my adventure. Who am I? Why am I here? What must I overcome? Now, would you see, most of us write ads as though everybody was like us. But better ads do unto others as those others prefer to be done unto. Now, there's 4 basic identities. This goes all the way back to the time of Hippocrates. These are 4 basic purposes. There are 4 basic identities, 4 basic adventures. Now, one of them seeks the connections and finds the patterns. They want to solve the riddle, figure out all of this stuff, and they can go to places in their mind without ever leaving the room.
ENT.
Now, yeah, what happens is Carl Jung in the Jungian archetypes. Now, by the way, before I give you the names of the archetypes, do not think that the name of the archetype fully encompasses that quadrant, or that all of the characteristics of a person match the name. Think of the name as just something that was grabbed to stick onto a worldview,
Right.
not the other way around.
And
Okay.
people, in our experience, tend to blur across the lines. Nobody lives fully in one quadrant.
Exactly. Now, when people are that way, there's the magician or the wizard archetype. Now, again, don't think they have all the qualities of a magician or a wizard. They don't. It's just that that's the name that Carl Jung decided to give them. Now, there's another one down here that seeks relationship, soul sharing, empathy, linking heart to heart.
Gross.
This is the seeker, healer, lover.
Those are weird people.
Who?
Weird.
The weird
I
people.
don't understand
The
it.
seeker, the
Said
healer, the lover.
magician.
Well, no, these are the people.
These people have most been struggling during this season of quarantine, probably.
Well, no, these are the people, believe it or not, who are the lubrication in the machine of business. These are the people that keep the rest of us from killing each other. And these are the peacemakers. And so that is the seeker, the healer, the lover archetype. Sometimes called the seeker, sometimes called the healer, sometimes called the lover. Now, the warrior archetype hungers to go places and experience things and do activities, and they're always travel, they're in motion, they're impulsive. These are the people that, when Dr. Grant is talking about it, he says, when you're traveling across the country with them, they always know where to go, where to be. They can find the best restaurant. They can find
Teddy Roosevelt.
things. Yeah, this yeehaw. And so that's the warrior archetype. And then this last one discovers what is missing and provides it. And these are the leaders who serve by creating structure, process, and order. And so if you're all about structure, process, and order, that's the administrator or the king archetype. So the king, the magician, the warrior, and then the healer or the lover. Now, so that's what Carl Jung called them. Now, these are the 4 ways of looking at the world. Now, this is about to get very useful, but I'm going to connect things together in such a way that most people don't connect them together. And if you study these independent, people say, well, our thing is not like those other things. Our thing is its own thing. And it's like, shut up. It's like these things are just echoes of each other.
Yeah.
And that's the position I'm taking. And so in Myers-Briggs,
Yep.
it's the SJ, the NT, the SP, and the NF. And this is the granddaddy of all the, whether it's DISC or Kiersey or
Yeah. Still comes back to that.
it all comes back to that. And by the way, this comes back to Hippocrates 2,400 years ago, 400 before BC. Hippocrates called it the melancholic, the choleric, the sanguine, and the phlegmatic, 2,400 years ago. Same observations, 4 basic lenses through which people look at situations. Now, we think of this as the driver, the expressive, the amiable, and the analytical. And so those are names that probably better describe than any of the other names, that better describe kind of the qualities of that worldview. Not the person, but that if they're looking through that lens, they're looking through the driver lens, they're looking through the expressive lens, the amiable lens, the analytical lens. And some people will have an analytical lens on media buying, and maybe the magician lens on ad writing. Same person.
Right.
And so the activity sometimes determines the lens you're going to look through. But most people have two. They have a principal and a backup. They very often go to a third one, and they almost never go to the fourth one. The least preferred lens causes you enormous stress. Now, everybody can operate in all four, but you have one that is your go-to, you have a second one that is your backup that you go to quite a bit. Then there's a third one that you almost never use. And there's a fourth one that is the trap door to the unconscious. Mm-hmm. And when you have to go to your fourth one, it's called your least preferred function, or your inferior function. When you're recovering from that, you have this gigantic gush of creativity. And Dr. Grant has, in one of our classes, he very skillfully, over a couple of days, takes people to their least preferred function, and then they go to sleep and wake up the next morning with like these genius things, and just get up and they write and write and write and write and write, and they come up with these insanely brilliant ideas. But it's hard to get there, and that's what they used to do back in the old days when they would use these encounter groups, and they would lock people in the sweat lodge and all that weird crap. These were people who didn't know what they were doing. They're horribly unqualified to do this, but they were trying to take people to that place of being so stressed that they had this huge gush of creativity. Unbelievably dangerous, should be illegal, because what you're dealing with is the unconscious mind, and there are monsters in the deep. Mm-hmm. There are monsters in the deep, and it's like if you're going with a good scuba instructor, there's beauty in the deep. But man, if you go down there with some knothead that doesn't know what they're doing, you can drown in the deep. Mm-hmm. You can have a psychotic break. And so I wanted to share, there's 4 lenses at which you can look at a felt need. Now we're getting down to ad writing. Are you paying attention? Mm-hmm. The analytical, what they want to save is they want to save face. The driver wants to save time, the expressive wants to save effort, and the amiable wants to save the relationship. Now, under more pressure, the analytical avoids. The driver becomes autocratic. Let me explain it. I'm going to say it one more time. You evidently weren't listening the first time. This is what we're going to do. Do not question my authority. This is going to happen. If you keep messing with me, I'm going to excommunicate you. You're out. That's autocratic, okay?
You said that as though you've said that before.
Let there be no doubt. I am the NT among NTs. It's like, you haven't been listening. And so a true expressive, though, will attack. There's a difference between becoming autocratic and then attacking. The person that lashes out, they're in expressive mode, okay? And what they want to do is they want to save effort, and then when they're pressed too far, they attack. Now, the amiable wants to save the relationship, but under extreme pressure, they will acquiesce, because it is always about the relationship. There's nothing worth fighting about. See what I mean? And so whenever I said the amiable is the lubrication that keeps the rest of us from killing each other, you know what I mean? You can never have too many of those people in your life, you know? But if you really want to get something done, you want the expressive or the driver, but if you want to make sure there's money at the end of the month, you really need to have an analytical calling the shots. You need to have CEOs that are good are usually analyticals, mm-hmm. because they're paying attention to all the stuff that nobody else cares about or thinks is very fun. So when you're going to write, I said, okay, how would I write to a person who's analytical, they want to save face, and they want to avoid something? And then said, how would I create the same message, but I'm going to write it for the driver? And they want to save time, and you cannot question their authority or talk down to them. If you talk down to, condescendingly, a driver, they will just, you're out. You do not get to do that. You know what I mean? I didn't ask you to come here and teach me stuff. I didn't ask you to come here and tell me I don't know what I'm doing. You're out. And so you have to be careful. And then the person wants to save effort, will attack you. And attacking, he said, you know, people are always doing this to you, and you're always having to put them in their place, and you say, we're not going to do that to you. Well, now you're talking not only to the driver, but to the expressive. And then the amiable that just wants it to be peaceful and everybody gets along and there's never any moment of conflict. So you're writing 4 different pieces of ad copy. Mm-hmm. If you look at these 4 lenses, what do they want to save and what happens to them under pressure, you know how to talk to each of these 4 people in their own way. Now this is what's called in advertising personas. Mm-hmm. And everybody wants to make personas more complicated and all this happy crap. It doesn't need to be complicated. It really doesn't. Because every freaking persona that works is basically some expression of one of those four. And we've known this crap for 2,400 years, okay? Now, payday. You ready for payday?
Let's do it.
Payday. Show, don't tell. When you're going to find out, and by the way, inclusive communication by design, now that you've written the same message but to 4 different customers, look at what's the difference in this message, this message, this message, and this message. It's a tiny, 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 just a few words, a few verbs is all it is. Well, now you take the few verbs from each one and you figure out how to reconfigure that so you have one ad for mass media that is inclusive by design in the sense there's something in there for everyone. And so that no matter what place you're in as a reader, listener, viewer, you can relate to it and they're speaking to you. They're speaking to you in your language. Now the other stuff doesn't put you off, it doesn't offend you or annoy you, it just doesn't really hit home with you. It doesn't really reach your gut, you know, the way that one thing that's included. And so 4 different people take 4 different things from the same ad. And so the first thing you have to do though is know what separates these 4 people, what are they trying to avoid and what are they trying to save. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And then you say, okay, payday. You never ask the business owner about their customer, ever. Because they're going to give you some theoretical crap thing. They just really don't know what they're talking about. You always ask frontline salesmen. You ask the people that have been selling this product or service for a long time, and you don't talk about personas, because they don't go there. It's a bad word to use. You just want to say, hey man, there's basically a few different kinds of customers. Tell me what your favorite kind of customer is. They tell you. Tell me about other kind of customers that you see quite a bit. You know, customers usually fall into what, 3 or 4 camps basically, and they go, yeah, they have 3 or 4 different kinds of customers. And you get salespeople kind of talking about it, right? And they can identify for you from real world experience. They've done this thousands of times. They will describe to you the personas without even knowing that's what they're doing of the 3 or 4 basic kinds of customers for this product. And then when you go, okay, what they're naming are the features and the benefits, okay, that people are attracted to, but either they're attracted to this about us, or they're attracted to this other thing about us, or they're attracted to this other thing about us. And so you'll go, okay, now I understand what each of the 4 people is looking for, and I know how to use the language of the real salespeople for this product or service in an ad. So now we have channel alignment. Now what we have is, we have the ads using the ideas and the language, not only that the customer is going to use to the salespeople, but the salespeople is using back to the customer. I don't have to train the salesperson to say the things that are in the ad. I write the ads to reflect the same things, the conversations that the salespeople and the customers are already having. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're working backwards from the
reverse
point.
engineering.
And you'll never train salespeople to change their script anyway,
right.
Because great salespeople know that's the worst thing in the world because it's working. You know, so they're going to be, you know, they're probably more in the upper quadrant. They're going to feel threatened by that, and they're going to see it. So it's not only is it more efficient, not only do you wind up producing better copy, but it also the results are better overall because no new training needed.
Okay, now I'm going to give a couple of examples of show, don't tell. We've talked about show, don't tell, right? When you tell, you say, well, here's what I think you should do. Here's what I believe. Wah, 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 wah.
Here's what I think you're probably worried about.
And so what happens is when you show, you reveal something without ever describing it. And so I'm going to use 2 examples, and when you show, don't tell, it hits really hard. And you will outrage a percentage of people when you lead them to a realization, because you're not having an intellectual discussion. You're just holding up a mirror in front of them, and you're letting them see something they never really saw before. You're making them think about something they never really thought about before. You're showing it to them and letting them form their own conclusions. And that's really outrages some people, okay? So I'm apologizing in advance because I'm going to give you 2 examples that are incredible examples of show, don't tell, okay? But they just irritate the hell out of people. But it's a good thing to do because you got to choose who to lose. All right? You ready?
Let's see it.
All right.
I would describe my political views as the new right.
I say that I'm left.
Feminism today is man-hating.
I would describe myself as a feminist, 100%. I don't believe that climate change exists.
We're not taking enough action on climate change.
I think it's about time these people got off their high horse and started looking for credible problems that actually exist.
It's absolutely critical that trans people have their own voice.
That's not right. You can't, you know, you're a man, be a man, or you're a female, be a female.
Women do need to remember that we need you to have our children.
Could I be friends with someone that says a woman's place is in the home?
Right, okay, well, I'm an expert at flat packs. If you have any trouble, just watch me.
So it looks like I've got your instructions here.
I think so. Let me help you.
It's not just that bit there.
Describe what it is like to be you in 5 adjectives.
Okay. Frustrating.
Dedicated.
Opinionated,
Lucky.
Ambitious.
offensive,
Solemn. I have ups and downs.
Strong.
I want to say attacked, misunderstood.
Name 3 things you and I have in common.
we're both male, we're both confident, and we're both loudly spoken.
We know each other better than people who've known each other for 10 minutes should.
You seem quite ambitious and positive, and you've got this really, got a glow. Do you know what I'm saying? Your aura's pretty cool.
I'm sensing, are you former military or something?
People have said that, but there is no
Really?
history. So are you then
Ex.
ex-military?
Yeah.
If you're ex-military, I'm very proud of you already.
Well,
So
I grew up in a bit of a rough state. I've experienced homelessness. I've known what it's like to have absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm definitely most grateful just for life.
We've only just met, but I think you're the sort of person that would listen to me and we'd have a discussion rather than argue. Yeah, you could hang out with, man.
let's go. My chance.
Goodness sake. You're right, mate.
Fitter than I look.
Perfecto.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
So basically, I think we just built a bar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here you are.
Each take a bottle and place it on its corresponding markings on the bar.
Attention, please now stand to watch a short film.
Feminism today is definitely an excuse for misandry, man-hating.
If somebody said to me that climate change is destroying the world, then I'd say that is total piffle.
So transgender, it is very odd. We're not set up to understand or see things like that.
I am a daughter, a wife. I am transgender.
I feel like the battle for feminism definitely isn't done. The fight is never going to be over, if I'm honest with you.
You now have a choice. You may go, or you can stay and discuss your differences over a beer.
I'm only joking.
You had me for a second then.
Well, I'm having a drink. I'm having a drink.
Yeah.
I want to discuss.
Beer.
Yeah, beer and discuss.
Cheers.
At the end of the day, mate,
About
I've
reaching
enjoyed
out to
working with
people,
you.
yeah. And, you know, even if you wanted to convince people about your point, the productive thing to do would be to sit down and have a
Just
beer.
engage.
I've been brought up in a way where everything's black and white, but life isn't black and white.
Yeah, I'm just me.
Yeah.
Smash the patriarchy.
I'll give you my mobile number, you give me yours, and we'll keep in touch. I'd have to tell my girlfriend that I'll be texting another girl. She might get a bit upset with that, but I'll have to get round that.
I'll have to tell my girl.
She'll have to lump it.
So either a person sees that and goes, wow, Heineken is awesome. And they bond with Heineken because Heineken believes like I do. Now, when you show, don't tell, you're avoiding, well, I'll tell you what, if people would just get together and, you know, be honest and respect each other's opinion and we could work things out. Shut up. It's like, you know what? You sound like something, you know, from a Sunday school class. You're just saying crap that has never worked. It's the kind of thing you put on those idiot posters in the dentist's office, you know, what's called successories or something. Yeah. It's like a little platitude crap. And so too often advertising falls into the realm of platitude crap.
Yeah. There's some eagle in flight.
Exactly.
And some word underneath it.
And so whatever you say, okay, how can I lead a person to this conclusion without stating the conclusion, okay? Now the other one, somebody at this table sent to me.
Oh, I don't think it was me.
Oh my.
And there's a big thing right now. There's a
I worry, because I don't always send you the, I send you some aggressive stuff. Oh, yes, I did.
Social media should not
did see that
fact
this morning.
check posts. Yeah, social media should not fact check posts, says child molester Mark Zuckerberg. And so what happens is, instead of having the argument,
Right.
you show them the impact of not holding people accountable for what they say in social media. And so it's like, no, we're not gonna have this discussion. I'm just gonna demonstrate for you. Social media should not fact check posts, says child molester Mark Zuckerberg. And it's like, that's called showing, not telling.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what side of that argument you're on, I just don't care. But I'm saying this is an amazing example of show, don't tell. Now the other side could do just as good of an example of show, don't tell. My only point is demonstrating the impact of it. And so when you're talking about show, don't tell, people don't know what you're talking about, right? Now, that's all the things that I brought to talk about that I thought would be fun to play with. And now you have to contribute something.
Oh, crap. I got... Does it feel hot in here? Oh, man. I don't know. I don't know that I have anything to contribute.
You want to let Ryan go?
I've got a
Yeah.
question. So this is, I know, a challenge that a lot of businesses deal with, where do you start customer first? This is the customer that we have. This is the customer that we want to advocate for, and begin to formulate your own ideologies and things. Because obviously there are examples of show, don't tell, but in showing and not telling, they pick a side, right? I mean, obviously, Heineken is picking a side in some of these.
But see,
areas.
every ad, think about this. How does any ad not pick a perspective?
Right.
And so you are picking a side in an ad. Do you go with charcoal or do you go with gas grill?
Right.
And whatever you propose, you're picking a side.
And sometimes the product that you're selling is going to inform the side that you picked. But I know there's a lot of businesses today where they're out there and they're like, we've just been selling what we had to whoever would buy it. And we started doing it because we just thought it was cool. And I don't care about any of this crap. And I don't know about, and they're like, so do I now all of a sudden need to bring, because I hear this a lot. I hear this a lot from the people that I work with. Should I now bring my own thoughts and ideologies into something that isn't inherently that? Let me give you an example. So you take Dave Ramsey. Right. Now, money, there's lots of people who talk about money and personal finance and would argue that it's a-religious, right? Dave says, I'm going to teach all this through the perspective of this because that's what I believe. And it started with him and his own convictions, brought that to the market, and then the tribe assembled around that. Other people I could see going the opposite direction, saying, who do I have? Where do they generally fall? Because frankly, I don't care that much, but I know it's important that we do something. And so I'm not just talking about politics and religion and other hyper divide. Those are the examples because they're the most obvious ones. But in any area, I guess the question is, do you start from you and where you are and go out, or do you start from the customers that you have and try to work your way backwards from them?
Okay, an ad writer is a speech writer. If you're writing a speech for the president, it doesn't matter what you believe. You're trying to articulate what he believes.
But as the ad writer, what do you start from them, or do you go, this is what your customers believe, so we're going to speak to this voice?
Depends upon the client.
Okay.
If the client is so full of themselves, there's no room for anybody else, and they think the world needs to hear what they think, then great. That's what you write. Now, if the person says, hey, look, I know we need to define ourselves and differentiate ourselves, but we want to align ourselves with the people that are the most likely to buy our product or buy our service. So how can we figure out the people most likely to buy our product or buy our service? What position do we need to take to find more of them and bond more closely? And so again, you're a speechwriter. And so if the ad writer ever brings their own opinion into an ad, fire the ad writer. They're an idiot, they're a buffoon, they need to get into a different business. Because the ad is never about the ad writer, ever. The ad is about the customer, and it's about the business owner. It doesn't have crap to do with the ad writer. Which is why, and this terrifies people, it actually makes people angry, and I've been called out on it several times. I can write amazing ads for either political party.
Right.
Unbelievable good ads. because I understand what both sides are saying. I see truth and beauty in both sides. I'm going, I can just plug into either one of those. I don't care. I can go either. I can swing AC, DC. And it's like, don't care.
Well, and most of the politicians who are the political consultants,
They also can too.
They work for both.
Yeah.
They're mercenaries, you know?
And so what I'm saying is, the question about, this is what our core customers believe. I'm going, but we have a new question that we have to ask. What is our level of market dominance? In other words, if we have fished out the ocean, there's not that many more of those that we haven't already got. Because I'm talking about local businesses most of the time. You're talking worldwide.
Right.
I'm talking local. So when you're the dominant player in your field and you're going, okay, we have fished out the ocean for the fish we've been looking for. If we're going to continue to grow, we have to start fishing for new and different fish. And so you cannot survey your existing customers to tell you what to do to get the new ones. Mm-hmm. You have to figure out what's the bait, what's the hook for the fish we've never caught before. Because we can't use the same bait and hook that got us these fish, because those other fish don't bite this bait and hook.
Yeah.
We have to have a whole different bait and a whole different hook. And then you have a question, how can we reach these new ones without betraying the old ones? Mm-hmm. And that's when you have to know what the hell you're doing. And that's what separates beginners from people that actually know their crap. And so it's a brilliant question. Thank you for asking. I just want to make clear that everybody understands. It doesn't have to flow from the heart of the business owner. It doesn't have to flow from the heart of the customer. Sometimes you're speaking to there's a huge group of people that have had no voice. And you're saying, okay, I want to appeal to this huge group of people that nobody's ever reached out to before.
Right.
Because they're going to be ecstatic.
That somebody's finally talking
Somebody
to them.
is finally talking to them in their language about what they care about.
Right.
And you've done that your whole career.
Yeah.
Find a tribe, develop that tribe, market to that tribe.
Yeah.
Okay? Speak to that.
So certainly when you're talking about the web and digital, it's you have the ability to access people beyond geographies, and so being able to talk to somebody who I just really, am super passionate about underwater basket weaving, before this person felt like they were all by themselves because they were the only person in their town who, really did enjoy donning scuba gear and weaving baskets underwater.
Which is harder than it sounds.
Yeah, it's very hard, but very, very fulfilling.
Yeah,
you bring
rewarding.
that basket up and the water
Very
comes
rewarding.
out. It's beautiful. Right. That is there. You're going out with a message, and when you're starting with an enthusiast type audience, it's easier. When you're selling a product that everybody needs, that's when you almost have to imbue a sort of enthusiast quality upon this, inanimate thing. Like heating and air conditioning doesn't care that you've accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior.
Right.
Right? It doesn't matter. Air is hot, air is cold. Like, your faith doesn't necessarily play into that.
Right.
But I know that for years, from everything from I'm going to have a fish in the lower right-hand corner of my Yellow Pages ad to we're going to be really overt about it, you have different things interplaying. So I think it's, what I've found is that you can be somewhat arbitrary with it, but it can't be antithetical to what you believe or you're going to come out as a fraud.
All right, let's talk about air conditioning for a minute. Because when you start thinking in terms of business categories where there seems to be no differentiation, okay? It's like Tom Grimes once said. He's a Culligan Water franchise partner. And he says, what can I say about my pure water that makes it any different or better than everybody else's pure water? He makes a good point. Heating and air conditioning is not quite that much of a commodity business. So here's a question. If you actually look up the definition of air conditioning, there's 3 factors. To be able to alter the temperature of the air is one. To control the humidity is a different one. And the cleanliness, the purity, is a third one. And so you can say, a lot of people in the air conditioning business know how to chill the air. That's not hard. But the real definition of air conditioning is to control the temperature and the humidity and the cleanliness. And we can do that with air and we can do it with water. And so how hot you want the water and how pure you want the water, and the same thing with the air. And so absolutely perfectly, scrubbed air and with exactly the humidity you want and precisely the temperature you want, that's what we do. We don't just chill the air.
Yeah.
And so people go, oh yeah, these guys are like really, you know, they've differentiated themselves like levels up. And they go, so if you're wanting the really expert guys, you go to those guys. You know why? Because all of that makes sense, and you never thought about it before, and because nobody ever brought it up before, these guys are obviously worlds ahead of everybody else.
But to the point of this exercise here, eventually everybody else is going to be able to say the same thing, and so that's where the bonding has to come in.
Exactly.
And you have to talk to the person because, you know, that's where, you know, at some point my water's wetter. You know, this hot dog tastes better. Like there's at some point when you're competing on product quality and everything, at the end of the day ultimately becomes commoditized.
Right.
Then the only thing that you have
they just have to like you better.
I just want to buy from them because I like them. Would you, along those lines, had another observation. Would you go back to the slide that had the full grid with everything on it? I think an interesting way, because what you said, I believe, is absolutely true. Figuring out how to write ad copy that speaks to all of these, that's when you're a pro. There's a way to get, I don't want to say 80% of the way there, but probably half the way there if you're not a pro. And that's to run this as a checklist to ask the inverse of it.
Right.
Not did I speak to all these people, but did I piss any of these people off?
Right.
Because if you can simply manage to not piss them off, you got a shot. Right. And so very often if you heard Rosetta and you're like, but I'm not a pro, I could never do this, flip it. Right. And run the inverse of it and say, okay, I don't know how I'd necessarily speak to them, but now that I understand these different archetypes and how they all fall in, is there anything that I said that might have severely alienated anyone where I didn't do it purposefully? Because maybe what you want to do is severely alienate one of these people, in which case you hit that hard. But I think that's a way to get, not all the way there, but maybe most of the way there.
That brings up an interesting point. And now we're going to put Daniel on the spot.
All right.
Now we're going to wrap up with Daniel answering the question that I just take great joy in bugging him about. I do this because it gives me pleasure.
Oh, no.
So this is not only where this is not only where we're closing out this particular episode. This is where we're closing out really this series.
Yeah.
Don't screw it up.
So this is.
I know the question already.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Whenever you say okay, filters, when there's certain people who want to drive away, at Wizard Academy, we have so many filters on our website, and the same thing at Chapel Dulcinea. I am really good at keeping people away from me that would irritate me too much. People that would piss me off, I know how to keep them from being attracted to me. And so all the stuff you think is wrong with Wizard Academy marketing, that's my fault. I did that on purpose. And which is why, for the most part, we exclusively attract the kind of people we're looking for. And the only time we have an awkward moment is when somebody's spouse or boss made them come.
Yeah.
Then it's awkward for a little while. We usually get them on board, usually, but not always. On the other hand, that is a very small room here on campus. When we're finished with the Village of the Lost Boys, we'll have a total of, we'll be able to house about 30 people if we use all of the downstairs and upstairs in the cabins, so we'll be able to. But realistically, we're trying to hold it 20 to 24 people in a class, right? And so we can be super selective because we've only got 40 weeks a year that we teach, and we're only looking for 20, 25 people. It's only 1,000 a year come to the school. But we need to have a bigger impact than that, which is why the American Small Business Institute is the online training division, and that's why we don't call it Wizard Academy Online. We don't call it Wizard Academy Online because Wizard Academy is a freaking filter to keep people that would piss us off away from us. And it's like, if you can't get past that, you just don't belong here, because we're really going to piss you off after you get here if you can't get past the name Wizard Academy. But American Small Business Institute is very authoritative, it's very white bread, it's very mainline, and nobody is going to be anything less than really confident and really proud to show a diploma from the American Small Business Institute. So that's why I own that domain name. I bought that back when it was available for $8.
8 big
AmericanSmallBusiness.com, bitch. AmericanSmallBusiness.com. $8. That's how far ahead I've been thinking. So the point is, we now have this problem. See, the Magical Worlds Communications Workshop is what you would attend at Wizard Academy. Now, what we're trying to do is, I was going to call it the Ad Writers Masters class because I'm lazy. And Daniel rightfully said, probably not what we want to do for the following reasons. I agree with Daniel. I really am curious
But part 2.
what we should call this.
Me too.
So it's a product of the American Small Business Institute. American Small Business Institute. We're trying to craft the best ad writers in the world, but we're teaching them completely different technology, completely different methods than any other advertising school. What do we call the class?
So, I don't know still.
What we need to do, by the way, you know The Sopranos? Cut to black.
Yeah.